So here's a quick tip. There's a little annoyance here when in item mode, and you're wanting to select a curve that happens to be resting right on top of another item in the background. So because of pre-highlighting, Modo tries to shoot rays from the mouse cursor to whatever item it happens to hit, and curves are notoriously difficult to lasso and hit. You have to really zoom in when you want to grab one. So what we could do is, I thought, well, why don't we lock this mesh? Well, I right click on the background mesh there, this one, and just lock it all the way down the bottom, and that does me absolutely no good. So I'm going to unlock it. Well, there is a trick here. You can go into channels, select the shell UV mesh or the background mesh that you have you're using as your guide. Go into the channels, and let's go down here. Go down to where it says selection. Select right there, default. Set that to no. Okay, now when you mouse over, it won't select and won't even pre-highlight that mesh, only the curves that you want to work on. Okay, so, but don't forget, you'll probably want to set that back so you can select it back here in the items list, and then go back to select and set it back to default. If you recall, in order to utilize our UV transform, we needed to convert the UV map here to actual geometry so that we could do a couple of things. One is have a guide for our curves, to draw our curves on, and the other is to have a background by which the curve vertices could snap to and adhere to, so that we're creating our curve structure for the UV transform on a single plane. And that was needed to be 1 meter by 1 meter square. And so everything worked out for us there, and it was a bit of a setup, but it wasn't too difficult. Now, I wanted to show you another way, an alternative way of doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my curves and turn off my background mesh, but this time I'm going to add a backdrop item. Now, backdrop item, of course, is an item that holds an image map that is pinned to a particular plane. But that plane is not real geometry. It's just a background image placeholder, if you will. And it comes in 1 meter by 1 meter, which is perfect, but it comes in dead center. So we just need to offset it a little bit. And here I'm going to do a position of, let's see, on the X, we're going to do that as 0.5 meters, and on the Y, 0.5 meters as well. There we are. Now that's exactly where our UV coordinate system is going to place itself in order to do the UV transform. So now I need the image on that. Well, that's a simple task. Just click on the image bar right there, and it'll bring up your clip browser. Click on the clip you want. Now you'll notice that it just got super huge, much bigger than we needed. All you have to do is go down here to use uniform size, click that, and there it snaps to the 1 meter by 1 meter square. All right, that's perfect. Now we have a guide which we can build our new curves on if we want. However, although we have a pretty good guide for building our curves, there is no way to actually use a mesh constraint on that, because the backdrop item is not actually a real item of which we can constrain our vertices to. So if you accidentally get off axis with a vertice, it's kind of a pain to put it back to a zero plane. So what do? We can just build a single polygon plane and have that sit exactly where our background image is. So I'll just go ahead and grab the cube primitive tool and just drag out a single polygon starting at the upper corner of the backdrop item. And yeah, there we go. And I'm going to now assign a material name to that backplane. And I've already done that earlier, so it already has a material assignment to it. And you'll notice that if you go over to the transparency edge tab there, I've got the opacity, the transparency amount set to 100 X% or so or more. So yeah, now we have a plane that we don't have to look at, that we don't see in our viewport, but it is acting as a mesh constraint for us, or a background constraint as we build our curves. So that way, if we do tend to get off axis there and build curves, it will still snap to that zero plane. And of course, we have our image in our backdrop item acting as our guide. Of course, there are all kinds of adjustments for that backdrop item too, such as contrast, brightness, and transparency, so that your curves show up a little bit better as you make them. All right, so yeah, so that's it.